We'll call this meeting of the Sierra County Commission of Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 to order. Sierra County is green, so we've got restaurants open, but we're still under the declared emergency and public health order dated March 23rd. We don't have any public present except for invited guests. This is being broadcast on a number of platforms, and we want to thank the Sentinel, KCHS Radio, and Dish Network, and all the other platforms that are carrying this. If there is public comment, it'll be read into the record, and that can be mailed to K. Wilson at sierraco.org or B. Swingle at sierraco.org, and it must be in the day before the meeting to be read. Clerk Shelley, would you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Paxson?
Here.
Commissioner Day?
Here.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Here.
Also in attendance is County Manager Swingle, County Attorney Pato, and Clerk Trujillo.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Chair Day, would you lead us in the pledge?
I will.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zeta symbol of perfect friendship among the United Cultures.
Thank you. We've got a couple of esteemed guests with us. Bob and Linda Dunlap. It's good to see you folks. Judge Pestak is here, and other members of the staff. Miss anybody? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Commissioner Day moves to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second from Commissioner Hopkins. Roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Okay, the agenda is approved. Is there any question or an approval on the minutes from last meeting?
Commissioner Day moves to approve the minutes from the January meeting.
A second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, please.
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passes. We don't have any public comment. Is that correct, Manager Swingle?
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, I do believe there's one.
Yes, there is.
Is there? Okay.
You can read it, or?
No, you can, I don't have it.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have one public comment. It's from Nancy Brees. It says, "Hello, Commissioners. I am a constituent of Yvette Harold's in District 2. I have several concerns about her and her ability to govern. I speak for many voters in New Mexico. Number one, Harold violated her oath of office 3 days after placing her hand on the Bible. She chose to ignore the Constitution. In my mind, I really need not go further. Number two, the blatant COVID-19 protocol around the state of New Mexico on numerous occasions and fragrantly posted pictures of herself in maskless crowds, ignoring pandemic procedures. Number three, Harold still refers to Trump as president, when in fact we know he is not. I question her judgment. Number four, prior to her election, she was touted by a group headed by Coy Griffin. I question her involvement with fringe conspiracy theorists. I question her loyalty to the United States of America. I'm a patriot coming from a military family. I deserve and work for my freedom. Harold does not represent me or the mainstream New Mexican. She must be censored. She must face the consequences of her bad behavior. I disavow her as my congresswoman. I hope you all do as well. Thank you for your time. Nancy Brees."
Does she give an address, Manager Swingle?
It's an email address, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we've got public comment. We'll go on to the consent agenda.
Commissioner Day moves to approve the consent agenda items A through D as presented.
Okay, there is no D. We don't have an indigent burial, but
A through
A
C
through
then.
C. Okay.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
The consent agenda is approved. We have presentations and reports. A service award for Eileen Davis, Manager Swingle.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think we're going to turn this over to the county clerk.
Eileen has been with the county for 20 years. She's been in the clerk's office for the last 4 years. She's at work right now. We're down one staff member today. Eileen is very dedicated to her position in our office, and she's a huge asset to the clerk's office, just as all our employees are, but she goes above and beyond in the election department to help us stay on track also. I wish she was here to accept it, but we will give it to her. Thank you, guys.
You know, I talk to Eileen on the phone every once in a while, and she's always so courteous and wants to help any way that she can. That's appreciated very
And
much.
she's cross-trained, so she knows every aspect of the office. So that's good.
Good.
You made it.
So,
Eileen?
we'll present. Come on up.
Are your ears burning?
You missed this beautiful speech about you.
I didn't let her come to work she had to work. So here's an award for you for 20 years of service. Don't you, don't. We appreciate everything you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have a certificate of appreciation. Manager Swingle, do you have that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I do not. I believe the sheriff has it.
Mr. Sheriff, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For those of you that have read the story in the paper, or maybe you didn't read the story in the paper, we had a pursuit that had occurred on the 30th of January out on Interstate I-25 near the King Canyon area. That pursuit was, we utilized the spike strips in order to stop that vehicle. Of course, in many of these cases there, the vehicle pursuit quickly turns into a foot pursuit. And that's what happened in this particular situation. Moments later, the suspect was found to be hiding on the property of Mr. Robert Dunlap, a Sierra County citizen. Mr. Dunlap quickly took action to hold the suspect there on his property at gunpoint until deputies were able to catch up to the individual and apprehend him. I was to understand that in talking with Mr. Dunlap about this incident there, that the suspect had a pretty good jump on the deputies there, but Deputy Marin was rapidly catching up with him. Anyway, as you know, there's been quite a bit of bad publicity here, not only with our legislative session, but in the last year, law enforcement's kind of taken it on the, taken a few bruises and bumps with the reputation. I continue to tell everybody that bad cops make good cops look bad. And that's essentially what we've seen in the past year. And unfortunately, it's what our legislators and our lawmakers are attempting to remedy during this session, but I think they're going the wrong way. So anytime we have an individual within our community that does something like this, it just goes to send the message to local law enforcement that in fact our community does support us. And we want to let our community members know that whenever they assist us in such a manner, that we're gonna be there to make sure that they know that we appreciate the assistance, we appreciate them as citizens, and I think it's really what makes Sierra County a great place to live, knowing that you have citizens that support their law enforcement, and so we would like to present Mr. Robert Dunlap a certificate from the Sheriff's Office. It is an Outstanding Citizen Award. So if I can ask Mr. Dunlap to come forward. Mr. Dunlap, again, thank you for your support. Thank you for your assistance.
You're welcome.
And I would also like to award you a sheriff's coin from the Sierra County Sheriff's Office.
Well, thank you. That'll go with a whole bunch of others I got.
I hope you could read your flag. Again, thank you.
Bob, come around and shake hands. Thank you. And I'm glad you're my neighbor.
Well, he was headed toward your house.
I'll just start calling him. Yeah.
You don't have to stick around for the whole meeting.
Good, I hate you.
Thank you, Bob. You know, once a cop, always a cop. You never put that away. But the other side of that is a citizen took action under the rights that are natural rights that come before the Constitution to protect your property and your family. So
You bet.
appreciate that very
Thank you.
much. Thank you for being there.
You bet.
Good to see you, Bob.
See y'all.
Judge Pestak, do you have a probate update for us? We haven't seen you for a while. It's good to see you.
You too, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Manager. I am here today to give you a brief update of what's going on with the probate court. During the past 12 months, during this pandemic, more often than not, my door has been closed as far as seeing people face to face, but with the help of the clerk and her staff, we've kept everything moving, actually moved along very smoothly. The Supreme Court issued an edict that gave us the okay. It lowered our standards as far as accepting things in person and original signatures. We now have the authority to accept a lot of things by fax, by email, any type of electronic communications. So with that, and with the help of the clerk's office, we actually have remained open at full force for the last 12 months. Our numbers are off a little bit, about 10%. They're down from the previous year as far as probates, but the number of people that still call in that need assistance is gone up. It's somewhere around 300 people that we've assisted with issues that don't result in a probate being filed. By the way, I want to thank all of you, or whoever made those arrangements with the Department of Health to get the county employees vaccinated. I don't know who takes credit for that, but thank you. I got my second shot last Friday, and now that I'm fully vaccinated, and I have permission from the Supreme Court, I believe we'll be reopening, doing face-to-face visits here pretty quick. Who wants to take credit for that? Oh,
The county.
okay. Well, thank you, the county. I am very appreciative. I want to tell you the probate judges, I'm the chairman of the probate judges. And we introduced a bill, it was Senate Bill 134. It was what we thought was a very simple bill. Because of coronavirus and for other reasons, from time to time, judges get sick and they're out of work for a while. And whether they're sick or out for personal reasons or for whatever, there's no mechanism in place for another probate judge to fill in for the sick probate judge, which is odd because we're the only level of the judiciary that does not have that mechanism in place. The way the law reads currently, a probate judge only has authority in the county that they were elected and doesn't go beyond that. And all we asked the legislature for, this bill was simple: give us permission when a judge is out sick, let another probate judge come and fill in, hear his cases. And actually, I was the guinea pig on this. If you remember back in 2019, I had spinal surgery. I was out for 7 weeks. Several judges called and offered their services to fill in, but the law would not allow them to act on my behalf. During that period, we did notify, before I left for surgery, I notified the county clerk's office that if anybody came in, if they couldn't wait till I got back, they could go to the district court and file probate there. And based on what the clerks told me, during that, I was out for about 7 weeks. And during that period, I believe the numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, but there were 12 walk-ins and 11 phone calls. And they told each one, we don't know when he's coming back, but if you want to file, you can go over to the district court. And all 23 people said, no, I'll just wait till Judge Pestek gets back. and again, I mean no disrespect for the district court, but the reality is, even though they have concurrent jurisdiction, the fee to file in district court is 4.5 times more expensive than the probate court. Their dockets, even before coronavirus, you would wait 2 months to get your first hearing. Now with coronavirus and the courts being closed for so long, you may wait 6 months to a year to get your first hearing. Or with probate court, you're usually in and out in less than a week. Another problem is the overwhelming majority of our people that file probates in our court are self-represented litigants. They're non-attorneys. And for a non-attorney to go before the district court, and again, no disrespect, but it's spooky to them. They are fearful of that, and they just don't want to do it. So, and it's not just Sierra County, it's across the whole state. It's just a natural response from people. So we introduced this bill hoping if one of us was out sick, another judge could fill in their absence. It seemed like a very simple, everybody I talked to said, oh, that's a no-brainer, you'll get that passed. Well, our very first committee was Senate Judiciary, and the bill was killed. And I don't want to make a political statement, because probate judges are very non-political. Even though to run for office you have to be either a Republican or a Democrat or independent, we're still, once we take office, we are very, very non-political. But this bill was defeated on straight party lines on a 6-3 vote in the Senate Judiciary, and the questions that they asked, most of them were very disingenuous. And I thought, you know, that has nothing to do with the issue here. So I suspect, and I don't know this for a fact, I suspect it had to do with our Senator, newly elected Senator Diamond was the one that carried the bill for us. And I think it may have been a punch in the face to her, I think. Again, I don't have any hard evidence to say yes or no about that. So we were a bit bummed out. I say we, the probate judge, were bummed out by that, but there's always next year. And I got a call this morning from the administrative office of the courts, and they said they're aware of it and they're willing to look at the rules committee. There may be a less complicated way to change the rules so probate judges could fill in for other probate judges in the event of an absence. So we won't know about that. It'll be 6 months to a year before anything happens with that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is some really good news. When I took over as a probate judge, things were in, some of you might remember, were a bit of disarray. And shortly after I accepted the position, I got elected as chairman of the whole New Mexico Probate Judge Affiliate, which was a little more responsibility than I wanted as a retired judge. But it turned out to be kind of a blessing in disguise. And as their chairman of this group, I thought, well, if you want me to be your boss, we're going to get everybody in line, and we worked to get better training for all the judges. They're more responsive to their communities, to their commission. Up until recently, the probate judges were the kind of the redheaded stepchildren of the judiciary. We didn't have seats on any decision-making boards. We were kind of always left out in the cold. And Friday afternoon, I get a phone call, and I look on my phone, and it says, unknown caller. And my first thought was, it's some goofy salesman wanting to sell me bitcoins or something. But I answered it anyway, and it was the Chief Justice of the New Mexico Supreme Court. And he announced that I had been appointed to serve on the Chief Judges Council. They created a seat specifically for probate judges.
Well,
And he wanted me to serve, and it's a 3-year term. I could go on and explain later what the mission is, but they basically, they're an arm of the New Mexico Supreme Court that oversees the administration and functions of all the courts, the Supreme Court, district courts, Court of Appeals, metro courts, municipal courts, and now probate courts. So it is, we went from nobodies to, we are now in the decision-making process, and we were given voting rights also. So it was quite a pat on the back for all the work that the probate judges have done in the last couple of years. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that's the end of my report, and I'd stand for any questions.
Questions?
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Judge, I think that speaks well of your sincerity and your will to make good things happen, and they couldn't have chosen a better representative to be in this first term. So congratulations. We're glad you're there. We appreciate what you do in Sierra County, but also throughout the state, bringing people together in the probate system. I think that's just outstanding.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But it really has been a group effort. I appreciate the personal accolade, but it really has been a group effort by all 33 probate judges working together to make this happen. And, you know, probate judges are an odd commodity. It's similar to lawyers. You know, people say, oh, we hate lawyers, but as soon as you're in trouble, who's the first person you call is you call your lawyer. Well, probate judges are like that. Nobody ever talks about them, but when you have a death in the family, that's usually my phone rings all the time. I'm usually the first person they call when there's a death. So we do a good job taking care of that business. And gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts with you, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
Always good to see you, Judge. Thank you. Department reports. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You have before you a copy of the February report. Just summarizing Smithco, the building construction. They're on schedule or a little ahead of schedule. Thus far, they should start interior framing of the spaces this week to Monday. Staff is completing a Colonius grant application for the planning and design of the Divide Wells Road. And there is a hospital governing board meeting on February 25th. Not on your update, but this just occurred. Have a Zoom meeting tomorrow with Senator Ben Ray Lujan. Tomorrow afternoon, he wants to talk about economic development in rural New Mexico. He's invited a couple of individuals from around the community who will participate. I believe there's somebody from the city, Main Street, and the Chamber of Commerce that will also be on the Zoom meeting. The assessor's office is closing out last year's and preparing the notice of valuations for them to go out shortly. And the office has filled their one vacancy they had in the office. From emergency management's perspective, given out over 201,000 pieces of PPE. what that's been valued at about $62,000 thus far that have been handed out to area healthcare providers or local governments. Facility management continues to spray our buildings, decontaminate them for COVID. They repaired a water leak behind the flood office and a water leak at the Albert Lyon Event Center. Both of those they addressed fairly rapidly. Flood control has approved 6 building permits, conducted 3 floodplain determinations for roaders, and completed maintenance on 4 low water crossings in the Animas area. They're resubmitting the Cochillo Creek documentation to Homeland Security for reimbursement. This is the multiple times we've submitted that documentation to them, but it appears that we should receive reimbursement for about $708,000. Misdemeanor compliance, they participated in their first mental health court workshop with the Administrative Office of the Courts, and that's a weekly training that they're going to be going through. It's more of an informational opportunity for the state DWI programs to work on mental health court. We're one of the first programs in the state of New Mexico, so we're very excited about that. Misdemeanor clients, they have 52 in DWI, 38 in misdemeanor, and 175 in pretrial. Road Department, immediately after this meeting today, Dave and I will be working with Billy on a road issue in Chloride in the subdivision there. It's a road closure that may or may not be appropriate. We'll take a look at it this afternoon. They've been busy installing cattle guards on many county areas, county roads, and they spent a lot of the month working in different creeks around the county to repair washed out dikes and levees. And SCRTA has their next board meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m., and that will be at the Date Street property. I've included the DWI report, the detention report, and I believe the county treasurer has been invited to come and speak on the treasurer's activities.
Any questions on that, commissioners? No. Good morning, Candy.
Good morning. How is everybody today?
Great.
Good. Our property tax collection, as of Friday the 12th, we have collected 69% of the taxes for Sierra County for 2020, so that's a good sign. Pretty comparable to last year where we were at 68%. Also, to let everybody know, all of the ladies in the office have received their both doses of the COVID vaccine, so thank you, Bruce, for taking care of that, getting us in there. And I've attended the New Mexico County's Legislative Virtual Conference, very informative, and learning a lot of information through the Treasurer's Affiliate, the different statutes and everything, so that we are following statute and making sure that we're taking care of business as we should. So,
What's the deadline for taxes?
April 10th, May
10th,
10th,
May
they
10th,
would be
they-
considered.
Yep. So
Delinquent.
we're moving
May 11th.
forward, getting taxes. People are writing checks. Huh?
They are. We're ready.
That's good.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you,
Good to see
Candy. Sheriff, do you have a report to share with the commission?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. We are getting ready. I'm ready to send a letter over to HR to bring on another applicant. We applied for deputy. We had testing about a week and a half ago. He's actually a certified officer, so we're going to be able to put him right on the street. Still accepting applications for the one vacant position, and reviewing some of the test results from those that have tested. So we're working on hopefully being up to full staff by the end of the month. Had a bit of a scare this over the past 3 days, as we do anytime one of these winter storms come through. This one was a little I guess more stressful on myself. I had to listen to the radio over the course of the storm, and I wasn't able to get out. I had a prisoner extradition this last week that the individual, when we booked him into the facility, was tested positive for COVID. And so had to wait a few days, but I'm happy to report that I had a negative test this morning. So We're back up to full speed. Had a deputy, an additional deputy that was exposed as well. He also tested negative this morning. So we're COVID-free and staying that way at the sheriff's office. I have probably the majority of my department who has received the vaccine. And so we're good in that respect. But again, we had the winter event that came in, and as usual, anytime that it affects our highways or interstates or any of the county roads there, and we're out in full force making sure that we're helping those people who need help either getting off or locating those that have skid off the road. And I'm not going to say accident-free, but for one of these and for this one to be, 10 or 11 years since we've had something this cold, where it's brought the ice along with it. We were way down in our number of crashes that we normally take for such an event. So working together with the TRC Police Department, Border Patrol, State Police, and the State Highway Department, we remained event-free. I know we had some electricity issues here in the city of TRC, and we had assisted in sending some deputies out to check on some of the elderly that were calling in. So again, we got through that relatively unscathed. So this has been a rather stressful legislative session on behalf of the New Mexico counties. I've been in contact with them almost on a daily basis, reviewing bills that are being dropped or bills that could potentially affect either the county's bottom line or law enforcement. As you know, this year is the attack on law enforcement. Everything's going for public safety reform, and in fact, I'm disappointed to have to report that there's not a single one of those bills that are working on reforming anything. Just making it easier for plaintiff attorneys to make more money on the backs of law enforcement in counties. So we're working diligently with Steve Kopelman, the executive director of New Mexico Counties, and Grace Phillips, their lead counsel, in meeting with those legislators and those bill drafters to, if it's going to be pushed through, then we're wanting at least some amenable language in there that we can live with. So we continue to work, and if there's any questions whatsoever on any of the legislative issues or something that even the county comes up with that you require my assistance, as your board of director representative, I'm happy to push whatever buttons we need to help push. And with that, I'll stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? No. Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the Board of Finance. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, what you have in your packet is the January reconciliation. Looks like there was one adjustment that was made in the general fund. Other than that, board is completely reconciled. The treasurer may have comments.
That has since come in. And
Thank you.
So we're good? Okay, great. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hopkins moves to approve the January reconciliation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Old business, the planning board appointments. Manager Swingle.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, several months ago, we had a vacancy. We actually have two vacancies in the planning, on the planning board. We've done a number of advertisements soliciting letters of interest from individuals. At this point, we have 3 letters. You have them in your packet of interest. So there's 3 letters, 2 vacancies.
So we have Byron Wilson, Richard Sines, and Donovan Skaggs. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to appoint Byron Wilson and Richard Sines to the planning board.
A second.
So there is a motion and a second for approving Byron Wilson and Richard Sines to the planning board. Roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes?
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
So, Manager Swingle, you'll notify the two successful applicants?
Mr. Chairman, we'll actually notify all three of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go to new business, the Department of Justice grant application, letter of assurance, Manager Swingle and Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very time-sensitive application, and the letter of assurance is if the commissioners choose to go forward with the application, we'll get the signature, and Virginia will need to send that off today, I believe. Typically, we don't take applications to the commission for approval. We normally take it only if we receive the grant, whether the county wants to accept it or not, whether the commission wants to accept it or not. This is a application that I do believe that the commissioners need to hear and make a decision on. Virginia has some information for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Virginia, you're isolated there in your safe space, so take your mask off if you wish.
You want to hear me?
I can hear you a lot better.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Manager, before I go into this grant, I would like to explain to you why that I feel that we need to go forward with this. 2 years ago, we had no programs for treatment for inmates in custody. We had nothing to help them when they got out to make sure they had their medication, behavioral health treatment, or any follow-ups. So we applied for a couple of grants. One of them was, at the time it was the IDP grant. It's now the RISE grant, and it allowed treatment in custody, behavioral health assessments, behavioral health treatment, and what they call the warm handoff, a case manager to make sure they leave with medication, they've got a place to go, they've got food, they've got clothing, they can get to their compliance appointment and take their drug test, they show up in court, and help for about 4 to 6 weeks after they're released. We got that this year. That was the RISE grant, and that's from last July 1 until this June 30th, and we have approximately $390,000 to carry that out. We have not used a lot of the money we planned on with COVID because services inside of the jail have stopped, but we are still doing the assessments and the release and follow-up treatment. So we have we should be halfway done with the grant. We've only spent about 25%. And another grant we applied for was the COSAP grant, the COPE grant, COSAP grant. This is a federal grant to give training and treatment to those with substance abuse disorders, both in custody, the same thing, treatment when they're out of custody, but it goes past the 6 weeks for until they are stabilized. So in that we were allowed $597,000, and it's a 4-year grant, and we are halfway through it, and we've only spent about $100,000. So we still have $500,000 remaining on that grant, also because we can't provide all the services because of COVID. A third grant we've applied for, called the BIZ grant, we were awarded $250,000 from last July 1 until next June 30th. This is supposed to provide whatever it is the county needs to give services to those who are sad, depressed, or suicidal. And so what we were focusing on was the middle school and seniors. And we have started several programs in the middle school where they can have a counselor. They've had some, in lieu of after-school activities, they've had exercise programs. And we're also looking at senior programs where they get what's called a pill minder, so it will dispense their pills and they can't accidentally overdose on opioid or other medications. They're also now looking at this for those with substance abuse because they will also over-medicate, and with a locked pill dispenser, they'll just get the right amount of treatment. So that's where we are, what we have. And I wanted to point out, we have a cushion here for behavior health services. One of the biggest problems why we still have recidivism, and before this started, our recidivism was in the 90s, 95%. With this program, we're still 60, 65%. So one of the things that was real clear is you can't just have behavioral health services without somebody helping you to make sure that you go to court, that you have a place to stay. You're not out on the street committing crimes. And so that brings us to this grant called Second Chance Act Pay for Success. The second chance is for people specifically who are incarcerated, and the point is twofold, to reduce recidivism, and for these people that are high risk of committing more crimes when they get out, to give them services or a place to stay so that they are being cared, taken care of, given treatment, and are less likely to become, keep up the criminal element. It's for public safety. And so with those in mind, it will help people. It's specifically targeting those with substance disorders who have been in jail and they don't have any housing when they get out, and they're really likely to offend. So it's permanent supportive housing. What we're doing now is we are leasing temporary housing, which is emergency, you know, to keep them off the street. It's helping, but it's not sustainable. And with this grant, the county will be able to purchase housing, and we have the option of several motels in town we're looking at. So if we could purchase the housing and spend the bulk of that grant money on just the purchase and the renovation, we could use the money from the existing other grants to continue all the mental health, behavioral health, substance abuse programs that we have going. So with that in mind, I want to let you know that this grant is for $1.1 million. Its application is due today in grants.gov. And that's just the application saying, yes, we're interested. And then grants.gov opens up a space for you in Just Grants, which is where you then have to go and download the information to do the narrative and the budget and the abstract and the resumes and all the other stuff that go along with the federal grants. If this is awarded and we get the grant, we will start October of this year. It is a 4.5-year grant. So I gave you a handout to show you some of the things we're looking at. This is not in stone. This has not been submitted. This is just a general idea. We have several options. We can buy a really rundown motel at a fairly good price and then spend a ton of money renovating it and fixing it up. Or we can buy several other motels that are a little bit better shape, spend more money on purchasing, less money on fixing it up. This may change depending upon when we get the grant, what's still on the market. So we are not planning on writing the grant. We are buying this specific place. We are going to allot X amount of money for the purchase and the renovation. And there's a lot of things involved in that. You know, they have to have the inspection. It has to be the fair market value. We can't give them more than that. We have to include closing costs. And so we then have all these other programs and treatments under the grant proposal that we will provide in this housing, the therapies, the case management. But then we have additional costs that we're going to have to be in charge of, making the electricity bill, the Wi-Fi bill, paying peer support people to watch in the daytime. We would like to hire security for a graveyard shift, for oversight for the program, to keep them safe and to keep the public safe. So those are all the costs we were looking at. There's the abstract hasn't been submitted. This is not in stone. This is just to give you a general idea. A couple of the things that are actually in our favor points towards us is that we're, number one, a rural county. Number two, we have been in poverty level. Our poverty rate's 21%, and we have limited funds and resources. We can't get these without assistance from the grant. And so basically, this is just an overview of what we're looking at. The last 2 pages are all the things that we have looked at with the hotels, the motels in town that we have the possibility of purchasing, things we would have to do to renovate the rooms, to fix plumbing, to maybe do work on fixing the asphalt or the landscaping or fencing, and then all the room upkeep, you know, replacing sinks. A couple of the places have other things like they need to have the plumbing replaced in a couple of the units. We we had them evaluated, and we got some price quotes for what it would cost to fix them. And one of the places has a conference room, which would be really great. We can fix it all up. They can have group therapy. They can have individual therapy. The rooms, there are so many rooms. In one of them, we would have rooms we could put a handyman in there and then pay him, hourly rate. We could have law enforcement officers new in town want to stay there. They don't even have to work. Just having them stay there, rent-free, might be an option. And so there's other things we're looking at, and using some of the rooms for telehealth or other types of individual therapy. And then there's all the other maintenance, the things we have to keep, fix the beds, the laundry service, replacing things as they break, and the service fees for the case manager will actually be able to be paid out of the other grants. So we could budget a little bit for down the road if we actually needed more. But in the meantime, talking to Olive Tree, who would manage this, they said spend the bulk of it and get it paid for, get it fixed up. So this is what I am bringing before you today, and I will stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I think that this is a pretty fluid situation and grant. If you approve us to go forward and approve the letter of assurance, that gives Virginia and her team a lot more time to work out the details of how this plan would actually work before you actually have to make a final decision, which would be
March. They just changed it again. It went from the end of February to the first week of March to the middle of March, and last week they changed it to March 30th. So right now we're looking at 6 weeks.
and that's at a minimum before we get all the paperwork from the feds to where the commissioners would actually approve the grant. So staff would ask that you give her that time and approve it today. Give her that time to put the best plan she can together for you.
Questions, comments?
I've got a question. First of all, I'd like to thank you for all the work you've done, and I believe everyone deserves a second chance. But my concern is Sierra County really the best place to provide these people with a second chance based on the statistics? I mean, 21% poverty rate, high depression rate, high suicide rate. Sometimes I think we're setting these inmates or whatever up for failure, and I think they would do better in a neighboring county, is just how I feel.
A question? I don't think we have the authority to send them to another county, and if they get out of jail here, they're gonna be on the streets homeless here, so this
But
is,
if we don't have a jail, how, I mean,
they're
these-
released here anyway. They're brought back here and they're released here.
okay. Well, it still doesn't change how I feel. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I do have, so there's no question, I think the biz grant, co-op grant, they've all been phenomenal. I think our success rate can be higher, if it wasn't for COVID. I think for me, Virginia, I'm okay approving this today if we're gonna see it again. And I just have some personal issues with us buying a motel and the long-term sustainability of that. So we get this 1.1 million, which is great. Don't get me wrong, I love getting grants. But in year 2024, how are we paying for the maintenance? How are we paying for the utilities even? I guess would be my big concern. Because we're spending, I'm looking here, over $800,000 to buy and renovate a property where in 10 years, Bruce may be having to provide room service for. So that, I just think there needs to be some clarity in how we're gonna go about this long-term. Because I don't want us to buy a property, take it off the tax roll, and then 5 years down the road, the county owns a motel that's not doing anything. So if we're gonna see this again, I'm actually okay approving this today. Again, just to help Virginia get some of that lined out, but I think for me, moving forward, that's gonna have to be clearly established on how this is sustainable long-term. But that's my, I guess, 2 cents into this.
Virginia, I agree with the concerns of my fellow commissioners. I think that second chance is very important, and we need to do what we can to help these folks out, and we should take a look at that. I too have some questions, so I'm gonna I'm willing to take a look at this and then have you come back and present to us with a much more detailed and involved plan of how we're going forward. So, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, just one more question.
Okay.
Does this money have to be used to purchase a building? It does, okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, could it actually be used to construct a building?
Possibly. It says permanent housing.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Again, I just think for me, it's going to be a lot of detail before for me to feel comfortable to approve it. There's going to be a lot that is lined out. But I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the letter of assurance for the grant.
Is there a second? Well, with this letter of assurance, it's looking at a bigger program and a more detail. I'll second. Roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins,
No.
Motion passes, and I do think we're going to need to see some detail at the March meeting so that we can go forward. So we're going to need the best plans you can get to come together. The long term is a real key there, so we'll see what you come up with, Virginia. Good luck.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have the New Mexico Department of Transportation CAP, Manager Swingle.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what you have before you, the next three tabs, it's the CAP route funding, the school bus funding, and the special projects funding. This is a letter of intent for each one of those projects. The CAP project is $169,000. It's for roads, County Road 36, Axel, Tucker, Blum, and several other roads to do road improvements on. The second one is the school bus route and letter of intent, and that is for various roads in the county. And the third tab is the special project letter of intent, and that is for the additional work on County Road 36, Axel, Tucker, Blum, etc. You've seen these roads, you've approved these roads and documents for the DOT. You're going to see them again with every couple of months. There's another requirement that we have to comply with the DOT. This is a letter of intent for all three projects.
Are all of those roads in the Winston area?
Yes.
Okay.
except for the school bus project. I believe that was.
Palomas.
Columbus, right. Yep, thank you.
As far as the road, the Kachia Creek Hill Road coming out of Kachia onto the flats, you're not gonna be doing any more with that road, correct? It's done? Or,
The San Miguel Road?
yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm not aware of any other projects that the road director hasn't intended out there.
There was a mud hole there at the cattle guard that's a mile inside of it, that they were still gonna put some material in,
Sure.
but that was maintenance.
Sure.
Yep.
One question on this. Do you know how Billy's going about selecting these roads for these projects?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Commissioner Day, the roads are supposed to be part of the 5-year road plan.
Okay. Sure, Commissioner Day moves to approve the route funding.
I'll second.
Does that include the CAP, SB,
The CAP,
and
SB, and SP.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Motion passes. Contracts and agreement. Manager Swingle and Jocelyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The first one you have before you is a professional services contract between the county and New Ventures. This is a consultant that the county would be hiring to do an analysis of the health council that exists in Sierra County. I have mentioned to you that the Department of Health has had some concerns concerning the health council, and they would like us to conduct this assessment. Earlier in the agenda, in the consent agenda, you approved the budget adjustments, and one of them is the $8,000 for this contract. However, we do plan on being reimbursed by the Department of Health for the full cost. We will not spend the entire $8,000 this fiscal year. Some of it will carry on into next fiscal year. Joseph.
Hello, Commissioners. County Manager.
Good morning.
Morning. Mrs. or Dr. Egan, she was what we had under contract when we initially started the program for the grants that Virginia had. So I've worked with her when we got these initially kicked off. And from her proposal and having the discussion with the county manager, I support bringing her on board to do this task because I think she's fully capable of it. And it's just basically at your discretion to move forward with getting her on board.
Okay. I think the most important things, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the scope of work for the consultant. One is the system development. Currently, there really isn't a system. These funds go to a 501c3 in Sierra County right now, and the county really has no skin in the game, has not been involved in that process. So it's creating the system, strategic planning, and the stakeholder engagement. The council consists of providers and experts across the county that participate in this, and it's key that we, take advantage of that and bring everybody on board into one health council for the entire community.
Mr. Chair, just one question. Will we receive updates throughout this? Will Dr. Egan provide us updates on kind of how things are going?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions or comments, Commissioners?
That's my only question.
Is there a motion?
Commissioner Day moves to approve contract number 2021-02-14 with New Ventures.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Xerox upgrade lease, next item.
So let me give you some background on this. When I first came to the county, we had Xerox machines scattered and contract agreements scattered. And I'm proud to say the only county that's ever got them all together in one group. And they won't do that for anybody ever again because it was a lot of work. But on that note, I went to every department to see if they were okay with working with Xerox again because our lease agreements were up. The only thing I found through this process, we had a longer lease term, and I think the machines would get older quicker. Well, not quicker, but through time they would start to lose their value and like needed more call-ins for work. So with this one, we went with the 4 years versus, I think it was 6 years or 5 years that we had initially had with them. But through the new state price agreement, the cost also went down. So it was a benefit to stay with Xerox and do everything at one time and move forward with the new systems and then with the cost decrease and then for a shorter lease. That way we can upgrade them again without them depreciating so much and having to hold on to them. And the only department that I mentioned was the assessors. They needed a little bit more features. But other than that, everybody pretty much stayed consistent. And I didn't really have any complaints from any of the departments, just the regular maintenance stuff. So with your approval, I'd like to move forward. And once that's done, I already have IT and Xerox ready to bring the new equipment in.
With the assessors, does that include the 36-inch matte printer that they have? Is that a Xerox item, or is that,
That's separate,
that's separate?
yeah.
Okay,
They have different systems for different things.
yeah. Will there be an additional cost when we move to the new admin building for moving them and setting them up?
There is a cost if Xerox does it, but if we do it, then there isn't, but they'll set us up. It would just be a moving cost, but I already spoke with maintenance on that as well, and we can, if the clerks allows us, I think it's the clerks or the treasurers, I'm not sure now, to use their truck thing to move the equipment. Yeah, if that would be possible at that time to help us out with the cost on that level. So I'm trying to line up everything moving forward and then moving into the new building as well.
Okay, questions, commissioners?
None.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hopkins moves to approve the Xerox upgrade lease.
Second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Jocelyn. Appreciate you getting it all under one roof, so to speak. So good job. Good job. Resolutions, ordinances, and proclamations. Resolution 109057. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This resolution has been a long time in coming.
Yes, it
A
has.
couple of years ago, the county commission approved a resolution asking the state to take over the Upham Road, the north and the south Spaceport Road. Now that the flights are imminent, the state's very excited about taking control of the road and taking ownership of it to deal with the day-to-day things that need to be done for flights when they occur. So this resolution, and we have been in dialogue, myself and the road director, been in dialogue with the DOT for months in trying to get this accomplished. The state is not ready to take any of the county roads, and it's likely they won't be ready this year. However, or to give us their roads. They are ready to take the Upham Road as soon as they possibly can. There's a lot of surveying and easements. They're looking at investigation to determine what easements are where on those roads that they want to give to us. The exchange is 28 miles, approximately 28 miles of the Upham Road from the county line to Ingle. It's approximately 28 miles. In the long term, what they would like to give us is the frontage road 2027, which is, I believe, exit 89. It's about 1.3 miles from there. It will terminate where the county actually picks up maintenance now anyway, and continue that. New Mexico 142, approximately 10 miles of that road from the turnoff from 52 to Monticello, approximately the Bridge of Grace, that area. And then New Mexico 181, 10 miles. What we're trying to get the state to do is take it from Warm Springs Boulevard, from the turnoff to Warm Springs Boulevard, to where it dead ends as you go under the interstate and west paralleling I-25 to where it dead ends. We want to eliminate the bridge that's approximately in front of Bar 2, and it's a real high traffic, actually all the way to Warm Springs Boulevard. So Billy felt more comfortable if we started there at that intersection and then moved east, or north and west. So this would allow us to enter into the dialogue. Any agreements that the county entered into would obviously have to come before the commission for approval. But the DOT would like a resolution to start the process with the Upham Road.
Mr. Chair, do we know the timeline of when, after we approve this, when we would see those documents and when they would actually take over maintenance of the Upham Road?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Commissioner Day, I think we're still looking at months for them to get everything through their DOT process. Everything has to go before the DOT Highway Commission for approval.
Well, we're certainly desirous of them having the up and road and whatever's gonna be done to upgrade and improve that for the traffic that it's gonna have, so, the world of engineers moves very slow. They gotta cross all the Ts and dot all the Is, but, I think this is a move forward. It seems like it's taken us a year or more to get here.
Yes, it has. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, they offered us many roads. There's probably 25 roads that they offered us to look at and take. Billy went and looked at each one of them, and these are the roads that he anticipates would be the most fruitful for Sierra County.
Sure.
The DOT wanted to exchange mile for mile.
Yep.
And structure for structure. They realized we were negotiating in good faith, and we're looking at approximately 22 miles of road that we'll be accepting somewhere down the road, to the 28 that we'll be giving to the DOT. And I do not need to remind you of the costs that we've had, particularly on the southern road, or the maintenance to that brand new road.
Yep.
The county's in a unusual position where both the north and south roads were built by others and then given back to the county once those roads were complete. So we really had very little involvement in the construction of those roads.
May we learn from that. Is there a motion, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to approve Resolution 109-057.
Second?
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passes. Resolution 109058, creation of Sierra County Economic Development Organization. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I think former County Commissioner and now City Commissioner Frances Luna, she's really taking the lead on creating an economic development organization in Sierra County. I understand there was one at one time, CEDO, many years ago. For whatever reason, it was abandoned at some point, long before I got here. I think in light of the economic development assessment that MST had done for Sierra County and other factors, poverty, some of the things that Virginia was referring to, it would be a good idea to develop that local economic development organization for Sierra County. So this resolution is to create or recreate CEDO for this community. And, I think that we get the governmental entities involved, we get key stakeholders involved, and other organizations to participate in this, and let's get to work on the assessment and try to create some jobs in this community.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hopkins moves to approve resolution number 109-058.
Second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passes. Resolution 109-059, supporting rule change enacted by the New Mexico Retiree Healthcare Association. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. A couple of years ago, the Retiree Healthcare Association approved some rules that go into effect July 1st of this year. And it changes the age of people to retire and changes the term that employees have to work to be eligible for the retiree health care. Well, the employees in county had been paying into this for some time. Statewide, they've been paying since the beginning of the retiree health insurance. This is pretty disingenuous for them to do this, and nobody knew about it until very recently when resolutions started popping up all across the state. And our resolution is a facsimile of the resolutions that are going around the state. It's basically asking the legislature and the governor's office to intervene and establish some requirements of the Retiree Health Association and get them to look at more legislative fixes versus having the county employees pay. Particularly the one that I think rubs people the most is the retiree age. Changing that. When you retire regardless of whatever age it is. To say that you can't do it till you're 55 really is disingenuous, and all the money that the employees have been putting into that fund have been for naught until they reach the age of 55. So staff's recommendation that you approve Resolution 109-059.
Questions or comments?
None.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to approve Resolution 109-059.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
The motion does pass. Resolution 109-060, authorizing the county to submit an application to DFA, Local Government Division, to participate in the local DWI grant and distribution program. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So this is an annual requirement that the state has if we want to be eligible and submit the application for DWI and distribution funds. This is the lion's share of the funding for the DWI program. So it's imperative that the Commissioners approve this resolution to make the funding available to the DWI program, misdemeanor compliance in our community.
Questions or comments?
None.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hopkins moves to approve the resolution 109-060.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion does pass. Resolution 109-061, opposing House Bill 4 of the first session of the 55th Legislature. Manager Swingle.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, for at least a month, the county has been writing responses to a couple of months actually, with the Civil Rights Commission and their proposed recommendations that they were submitting to the legislature. This is a very challenging for counties and local governments. I think cities, counties, soil and water conservation districts, schools, most everybody that I know of has been opposed to this legislation. It creates additional liability on the county. There is one amendment that I would like to see added to this bill, and it was done, of course, before drafting this resolution. But the resolution is opposing House Bill 4, and it should also read opposing House Bill 4 and the committee substitute for House Bill 4. The legislature is now telling everybody that we were opposed to House Bill 4, but we have not been opposed to the substitute. Well, the substitute is an improvement, but it's still very bad for local governments. And I'll defer to the county attorney on the legalese of the bill itself.
Mr. Chairman,
Pato.
Mr. Manager, thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, this morning I've already sent Ms. Dora a revised draft resolution for your execution, and that will oppose both the original and the House Judiciary Committee substitute bill for House Bill 4. I also incorporated a few additional recitals, noting how that substitute bill does not address the county's concerns in light of the correspondence we received from Mr. Copeland this morning regarding the matter being put to the House floor this morning at 11. Included in those revisions to recitals, I've noted that that this substitute bill does little to address the county's concerns, that it caps, the cap they've incorporated now is 2.7 million as opposed to the limitless cap that they had. So it doesn't do a whole lot for us there. There's still the mandatory attorney's fees. It could render us uninsurable just as the original legislation did. It's likely to increase the number of cases that are filed by creating this new cause of action and for providing for attorney's fees, a mandatory attorney fee provision. So even if they recover $1 or $2, they'll still get $450 an hour for attorney's fees. And that if insurance is inadequate, that this is going to ultimately fall on the taxpayers of this county, that if we don't have sufficient revenue in our general fund to cover any judgment against the county, that we're going to have to impose a property tax levy to cover any such deficiencies in our budget. So it's very concerning, and we are still very concerned by substitute House Bill 4, and that revision has been made, and that is what will be presented for your signature this afternoon.
Thank you for that, Dave.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Dave, with the revised language, you did it in the title and in the now therefore?
Yes.
Okay.
Questions, comments?
No, just one question, I guess maybe for Dave or for Bruce. I don't foresee it now that it's on the House floor getting amended on the Senate side, just because then it'd have to go back to the House, but should we include something in there that just says, and any other substitutes that may come up, or?
Absolutely.
Just to add, just in case, that way we have policy on, maybe they come back and the Senate side and say, well, we're gonna cap it at 2.5, and that's a better for counties. I mean, that way we have policy on it. If we can just include that in there, I think that would.
Mr. Chairman, if the commission is so comfortable, I'll make that revision.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion?
Mr. Commissioner Day moves to approve, resolution number 109-061 as amended.
A second?
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passes. Resolution 109-062, opposing House Bill 40. Manager Swingle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. House Bill 40 is basically an attempt to eliminate private detention facilities across the state. Under state statute right now, the sheriff can run the jail, the commissioners can hire a detention administrator, or the commission can contract the operation of the jail out to the private sector. This is bad legislation. Many counties rely on that option, and I know Dave has at least one county that uses a private sector jail. I've been in counties where we had the private sector run in the jail. They run a very, very good detention facility, as good or better than what counties can run. This resolution is opposition to that, and we will get this and the last one you approved to the Association of Counties and to our legislative delegation immediately after approving, if it's approved.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just speak briefly to the opposition to House Bill 4. Yes. So, as Mr. Swingle noted, when we enter into a contract with a private independent contractor to operate our jails, those contracts have to go to the Attorney General's office, the Risk Management Department of General Services Division, and LGA, Local Government Division of DFA. And that review encompasses what standards those jails are going to operate by, whether they operate by ACA standards or otherwise. They include indemnification provisions to protect the county and hold the county harmless and the state harmless from any claims that arise by virtue of their time in jail. We don't have those as it relates to county jails. There's no requirement that county jails comply with ACA standards. There's no requirement that county jails have indemnification provisions. Actually, it's the taxpayers that have to, pay the cost, just we're discussing in relation to House Bill 40. So the counties that have contracted have effectively displaced that responsibility onto those independent contractors. And what this bill is going to do, and my concern with respect to this bill as it relates to Sierra County, is that we do contract out with Luna County for the housing of our inmates. And what's going to end up happening is it's going to monetize these inmates, and it's going to drive the cost of beds up. So the Secretary of Department of Corrections has noted that they are 3,000 beds short without having those private beds. So we're going to then compete with the state and all the other counties that don't have facilities for the few beds that remain in the county detention facilities. And when coupled with House Bill 4, we're going to end up exposed now for constitutional claims relating to constitutional deprivations in those facilities. I mean, it's just they're binding our hands in every which way. And so it's for that reason that I asked the board consider the opposition to House Bill 40 and to permit counties to continue to contract with private detention contractors. I stand for any questions you might have.
Questions?
No, I think our county attorney hit the nail right on the head.
Good. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, we find here Commissioner Day moves to approve resolution 109-062.
A second?
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson?
Yes.
Commissioner Day?
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Yes.
Motion passes. Resolution 109-063, supporting Yvette Harrell. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, staff was requested to draft a resolution in support of Representative Harrell, and the attached document is the resolution. Ironically, Dave worked on one section of this, I worked on another, unknowing that the other was working on it as well. And we've merged the two resolutions into one.
Great.
So it's a little lengthy. That is the cause.
I think that's fine. I want to speak to this directly. I asked for this resolution. Our neighbors to the west in Grant County and our neighbors to the south in Doñana County, their commissions both approved resolutions condemning Yvette Harrell for questioning the election. I'm appalled that a representative in the halls of Congress, acting under the elements of the Constitution that are laid out plain, pure, and simple, is castigated for questioning an election. I share some of the same questions that our Congresswoman Yvette Harrell has, even in New Mexico. I think that there are some problems that need to be addressed with who votes and how they vote and how those numbers are tallied. And I think that we can go back to the election of Ms. Torres Small when Yvette Harrell had a seemingly insurmountable lead until a bunch of ballots were found in a warehouse. That caused to question the validity and the integrity of the election. And I think that Yvette Harrell is doing exactly what we sent her to Washington to do. She's standing up for so much more, protecting our border, the production of oil and gas, the help with our folks in New Mexico with our poverty situation, with our COVID concerns, and so much more that reaches into what this community in Sierra County stands for. I feel like those who stood and contested the election were doing so as provided by law, but they did that at risk. I think that when we are not able to voice an opinion due to feared retribution, we're in trouble as a community, as a county, as a state, and as a nation. And this cannot be. I just hope that my two fellow commissioners will agree and will pass this resolution. Any other comments?
None.
Yep, I agree. Very well stated.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hopkins moves to approve the resolution 109-063 supporting Yvette Harrell.
Second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Resounding yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you for that. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Day moves to go into executive session pursuant to Section 10-15 E through H to discuss matters in regards to pending and threatened litigation, personnel, and real estate reasons as listed on the agenda.
A motion and a second?
I second.
Okay. Roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day.
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
We are in executive session. To come out of executive session.
Mr. Chair, I move to come out of executive session and certify that no action was taken and only matters listed on the agenda were discussed.
Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. A roll call, Shelley?
Commissioner Paxson,
Yes.
Commissioner Day,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This commission meeting is adjourned.